Hey, Dave O'Sullivan here, and in this video I want to show you how to actually get your patients to achieve thoughtless, fearless movement. Now this phrase I first came across when I was reading Louis Gifford's books, Aches and Pains, and he uses this phrase throughout, and I just thought when I read it, that's exactly what we do with professional athletes when we get them back onto the field. And it's also what we don't do with professional athletes when we send them back onto the field too early, and you can see how they're training that they don't actually have thoughtless, fearless movement. Okay, so I've really embraced this phrase. I love this phrase because I just think it absolutely nails what we are trying to achieve with private practice patients, because no patients want to be just living pain-free, but have to think about every single movement. Okay, and very often what we do in the rehab process is we think and optimize to decrease the patient's pain experience. But the reality is they need probably another couple to even 3 sessions more sometimes in order to build confidence. So just because the patient's pain is gone, are they actually confident to move with thoughtless, fearless movement? Now, when we actually unpack this phrase, thoughtless, fearless movement, what it really means, or what I perceive it to mean, is that we can use these muscles without the higher centers getting involved. Okay, so when we look at movement, we always want to focus on an outcome. What's the outcome I want? So if I want to reach towards the camera, the outcome is I want to try touch the camera. I'm not thinking about my traps, my scapula, my rotator cuff, any of my muscles. Okay, I do the movement and there's a self-organization component happening. Now, if I've got acute pain and I want to do this movement really quick, what you'll usually see is a slow, cautious movement. So that's going to be one of the big clues that your patient doesn't have thoughtless, fearless movement. So when we unpack this, we need to expose our patients to situations where they can do all of these movements that they need to do in real life. But when we get to thoughtless and fearless, what we really mean there is the ability of the muscles to just almost do a Goldilocks approach. Use just the right amount, no more, no less. Okay, and very often what you'll find is when you expose patients to the high level rehab, they'll usually progress to the next level, but they'll actually be using too much. Okay, so they'll be too tense, they'll be probably contracting the muscles a little bit more than they need to, they'll feel stiff, they'll usually feel a little bit rigid. And then as their confidence starts to grow and we expose them to these situations, very often what you'll see, the difference is actually the muscles will start to relax. They'll go a little bit floppy, okay? And that's a good sign then that we're well on the way to thoughtless, fearless movement. So when we can put this patient in situations where we want the peripheral tissues to talk to the spinal cord and figure it out without the higher centers getting involved, that is ultimately what we need to do to get patients to thoughtless, fearless movement. So your rehab needs to come up with situations where you expose the patient and the tissues to those situations, okay? And as always, attitudes and beliefs, they're going to be really, really important as well as behaviors, okay? So what's the behavior the patient's doing currently in these situations? What's the behavior that we want them to do? What's their attitude and belief about it? And then we need to design rehab programs to expose them to these situations to build that confidence so that they know that it's safe to do these things. And as we start to expose them to that, usually what we'll find is they'll relax as opposed to actually use their muscles more. Okay, so that's essentially how we're going to get our patients to thoughtless, fearless movement. If you want help structuring this, if you want help bridging the gap from low to high level rehab, from top down to bottom up to thoughtless, fearless movement, then just pop a yes please in the comments below, and I'll show you how we've taken this information and how we've structured it into a step-by-step system that was actually originated in pro sport, and how I've implemented it into the private practice here. So just drop a yes please in the comments. I'll send you all of the information.